Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Friday. Looking forward to another weekend of Scottish Cup action, a break from the league for Celtic, Alison. And today, joining me is Alison McConnell. Delighted to see you, Alison. How are you? All right?
Very well, thank you, Tony. Yourself?
I'm all right. Yes. All good. Now, just touched on it there. Scottish Cup action, Alison. We expect a rotated team, don't we?
Yeah, I think that would be the anticipation. I think it would be a sensible approach to the game given the volume of matches that there's been over the last few weeks and coming up too. It's been a fairly hectic schedule, so I think it's a home tie. I think you would expect Celtic to negotiate it fairly comfortably. That's without taking anything away from Raith Rovers. But yeah, I would expect that there may be a few changes and possibly game time maybe for players who are coming back from injury. I'm thinking about Christopher Julian, if there's maybe scope to give him an opportunity maybe to play a few minutes or so. I'm not sure if the game would come too early for him to start, but possibly coming off the bench and making some kind of contribution as he looks to get back onto the pitch. I think it's 14 months without a game. It's a long time to have been out. I think it will take him probably a bit of time to get up to match sharpness. So it will be a case of just reintroducing them gradually, I would have thought.
Is it the game to start him? Is it ideal to start him, or do you think he'll feature at some point but maybe not start? Would you trust him alongside maybe somebody like Starfelt or Cameron Carter-Vickers?
I think it's a difficult question to answer because I think Ange Postecoglou is particularly coy when it comes to discussing injuries. I think I had read a few weeks back that he was saying he didn't like talking about injuries because it felt too personal information to share. And then I saw again he was obviously pressed earlier in the week on a return for David Turnbull and Kyogo Furuhashi, and he'd said he was always reluctant to discuss it in case they are not back when anticipated. So I think you've not really had a clear picture of the injury or the rehabilitation or where he is in terms of coming back. I think at the start of the season, I think there seemed to be a suggestion that he would be fit for around the end of October, the start of November, and that obviously didn't happen. So I'm not sure if there was a setback somewhere along the line or the rehabilitation has just taken longer than anticipated. So to answer your question, Tony, I think it's a hard call to make because we are essentially in the dark about the injury and where he's been and whether or not he's had much game time. I know he's been back in training and back on the grass, but I think that's only been a few weeks. When you consider just how long he's been out for, I'm not sure if he would start.
What he did say was that he's fit and available to play, and it's just about getting that opportunity. He's kind of hinted all along that it might be against Raith, but not actually said that in so many words. So I'm like you. I think he'll get some game time. Whether or not he starts is another consideration. I mean, Celtic played Raith Rovers in September and won 3-0. Goal scorers were Jota, Abada and Turnbull. You could actually find that none of those players will play in this game.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think Abada is one that you could probably rest. Jota maybe will want to play because he missed quite a bit of football. He might still feel as though he wants some games just to hit optimum match sharpness. But yeah, I would definitely anticipate a very different looking side than what you've seen in recent weeks. And I think that would be sensible to just try and manage the demands of the schedule at the minute and also just give everyone some game time.
We found out what happened to Josip Juranovic as well. He had an illness, Alison. It wasn't an injury, it was an illness. And Ange said if he's not fit for Saturday, he'll be fit for the following midweek. So there you go. Didn't go into the nature of it, as you say. He's pretty reluctant to talk about these things, isn't he? And why do you think that is? I mean, I know he sort of says that he doesn't like to talk about injuries because if he gets the timescale wrong, then it makes a fool of him. But he just always clams up when it comes to that kind of thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's particularly coy on it. I'm not sure what the reason would be. I don't know if he's right in saying he's uncomfortable discussing elements that are fairly personal to individuals. Or it may just be more simply about not wanting to impose a time frame on something because it becomes a story then when someone doesn't come back if you've spoken about it publicly. And I'm thinking very much there about Christopher Julian because we were There was a definite hanging on October, and then all of a sudden that didn't happen. So I think when it doesn't materialise that way, sometimes it might encourage just a story that you're not particularly comfortable with. But I'm guessing purely speculative answers that I'm giving you. I think there's only one person that could answer that question for you.
It's just one of his many quirks, isn't it? When you sit in front of him and you speak to him, but enjoyable ones all the same, to be fair. Now, do you see Raith Rovers posing Celtic problems? They've had their own off-the-field problems in the lead up to this, and they've not come out of it looking all that great. But that's another side issue altogether.
Yeah, it's been a circus over the last few weeks, I think, entirely of their own making. I think there was no secret about what the reaction was going to be when David Goodwillie was proposed a few months back. I think it was fairly clear that it wasn't a positive reaction. I think they underestimated the strength of feeling. I think probably there had been an idea that there would be a furore for a couple of days and then it would die down, and I think they completely got it wrong. I think it's probably too little, too late in terms of where that is now. And I think people that made those decisions are still in charge, which I think may be an issue for certain people, especially when it comes to sponsorship deals and whatnot. So, yeah, they've been in the mire with that. I think in some ways they'll be relieved at this tie because it takes the focus away from those issues and brings it back to a football matter. In terms of proposing Celtic problems, they shouldn't. When you look at the resources of both teams, they certainly shouldn't. Celtic should be fairly comfortable winners of this tie, but as you and I know, football doesn't always work like that. It can be unpredictable, certainly in a cup scenario against a team who have very little to lose. But if Celtic approach the game properly, then I think you would anticipate that they come through it fairly much unscathed.
Now, Jill Pill comes in and says, Raith are sitting okay in this championship. Celtic should field a strong team to start. And then Robbie Patterson goes in. This was one that I was actually thinking of as well. I think Anne should start 16-year-old Ben Doak against Raith Rovers on Sunday. The lad looks so positive with the ball, his feet so much pace and energy. I was thinking about that as well. Would you give him a run out from what you've seen, Alison? Have you been impressed by Ben Doak?
Have to confess, I've not seen a huge amount of him. I saw him against Rangers when he came on for the latter stages, but I've seen him in glimpses. I'm not sure I'm properly equipped to make that call. I would bow to others' judgments on that matter because I have seen him very fleetingly. But certainly, if he's in and around the first team squad, it would be an indication of what the manager's thoughts are of him. He's included him in some pretty big squads. So if he feels comfortable and confident that he's first team ready, then he may not start, but it would be an opportunity certainly to give him a bit of time.
Frank Brennan comes in. Morning, Frank, regular contributor. Most definitely a very strong team to start to give our opponents the respect they're due, and more importantly, it keeps us focused on what's at stake. We said that the last time when they played Alloa, didn't we, Alison, that there would be kind of hybrid of a strong team and lots of first team players, and we got it woefully wrong. So again, we're going to have to second guess Ange and pick our 11, but I think he might rotate big time and bring in, as you say, a lot of those fringe players and guys that need game time and players coming back from injury. But you can never second guess them, but we always try. Anyone else that you feel that might come into your thoughts for a game? Maybe thinking somebody like Liam Scales, who you have seen a lot of and been impressed with. Yeah,
I think he would be itching to start and itching to get some game time. I think the problem now, and we've spoken about this previously, is that it is a fairly bloated squad now. Numerically, it is a big squad, and the challenge is in balancing that with the demands of what you have to do on a weekly basis, and trying to keep everyone happy and hungry and keep a competitive edge within the squad. I think that does become quite hard when you have a big squad. It can be quite tough to manage. I do think there will be changes. I think players will come in. I think it would be an ideal game to rest Callum McGregor. I think playing with a double fracture in his cheek, and he's coped admirably with the mask. I think though it would maybe be sensible offer him a break and just let that heal as much as it can, and reintroduce a few others. I'm not sure where Idiguchi is in terms of his fitness. Obviously, he was injured in the game against Alloa. I'm not sure what the scope of that injury is, if he might be one who comes back in. I think Near Beaton might come back in too. Liam Scales, I think, could feature, and I wonder if Stephen Welsh might play too. And I think there might be some game time too for another goalkeeper. I wonder if he might play Scott Bain, or if he might go with the Greek goalkeeper and give him an opportunity and a run out. I'm not sure, but I think there's certainly obviously some interest out of whether or not Barkas comes back in, or whether or not he sticks with Joe Hart.
Now, Paul Byrne comes in here and says, I really hope McCarthy gets a full 90 minutes. Do you see him featuring at all, or did he come into your reckoning?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think if you look back at recent seasons, 90 minutes for James McCarthy have been very, very few and far between over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure if he has a physicality to cope with a full game yet. I'm not sure. Celtic gave him a long-term contract, which, when you look at the evidence of this season, looks fairly puzzling at the minute, you would have to say, given the contribution that he's made. I think this is a game that he could come in and feature and could come in and play. Whether or not it would be the full 90 minutes, I'm not entirely sure.
Now, the other night I got the Maeda Giakoumakis conundrum spot on, because I said Maeda would lead the line. Now I think the other way. I think Giakoumakis will come back in on Saturday. I don't know, on Sunday. Do you have any thoughts on that? You thought Giakoumakis would start at Pataudry. Do you feel that he'll start on Sunday?
Yeah, I think he might. I think he looks desperate for a goal just now. Yeah. I think. I thought against Motherwell at Fir Park, I thought he made a fairly good contribution, and I had a conundrum actually, like you. I was between Maeda and Giakoumakis, but I just thought he had offered quite a bit in that role, although he hadn't scored. I thought he acquitted himself fairly positively, and I thought he lent a different element to Celtic's forward line, which is why I thought he would start. Maeda obviously had then stepped inside when Giakoumakis went off. Yeah, I do think he will start. I think he's a confidence player, and I think a goal or two might just do him no harm at all.
You have to say, he has been very unlucky, Alison, hasn't he? In the 3 games that he played prior to Pataudry, he came up against some inspired goalkeeping. Granted, he maybe missed ones that he thought he should score, but he was still in a position to have those chances, maybe not so much take them, but I mean, he did everything bar score, didn't he, really?
I think he's been unlucky in a number of senses. I think coming in and getting injured at a point when all the whole forward line at one point were injured was particularly unlucky, because I think when you come into a new club, it can be so crucial to get off to a positive start. I think it just helps you to bed in, and you've seen that with the likes of Kyogo Furuhashi, with Ryo Hatate, with Maeda, with Matt O'Reilly, how important those first impressions can be for both the perception and for the players' confidence themselves. So I think he was unlucky on a number of fronts. I think it's too early. I think I've read a few things, I've heard a few things about people writing him off. I still think he has something to offer in a forward sense. So I think he'll be looking for a decent run between now and the end of the season. But when everyone is fit and available, there are question marks about just where he fits in and how he fits in.
Yep, Jill Pilgrim and says GG has done nothing wrong. I tend to agree with that as well. And the Retro Celtic comes in and says, I'd like to see a midfield of Gucci, Rogic, Hatate to start. That's a big call, isn't it? Yeah, for the midfield. And Frank Brennan comes back in and says, whatever else happens on Sunday, Giakoumakis really needs to start scoring. It's completely understandable. He's desperate to score because he knows for sure that he just has to. Otherwise he'll not play, Frank. That's the bottom line, isn't it? But I feel there's a player there. I mean, he scored a lovely goal against Alloa. He took that really well. Took his goal against Hearts brilliantly too. So I just think he needs, as you say, to kickstart it a bit and get a kind of glut of goals or a run of goals, as you say, because his actual play's been not too bad, Alison.
Yeah, I think he could be fairly satisfied with his contribution. I'm sure, like all strikers, he'll be aware that he's probably judged on his return of goals. So I think he'll be keen to make his mark and make an impact in that front. I think he does have a challenge staying in the team when everyone is fit and available, but at the same time, I do think he offers something that none of the other forward players do, and I think he offers a way for Celtic to change things within games when it's not working. When it's been fairly staid, I think he can make a contribution. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how he how and when he features over the next couple of months.
Yep. Now, you treat every competition serious, Alison. I know Ange is, and he'll still, inwardly, he'll be telling the players that they can win all three. But these games are you're on a hiding to nothing. If you give Raith Rovers a beating 3 or 4, then people just shrug their shoulders. But they are tricky ties, aren't they? Well, not gimmies.
No, and I think you've seen that previously. I think even the game against Alloa was towards the end of the game when Alloa were throwing everything at it. You can see what comes. I think you know the kind of game that you're going to face. I think it is a different proposition at Celtic Park than what it would have been had it been up in Kirkcaldy. I think you have the expanse of Celtic Park and the pitch. You can stick to your own game plan. You can utilise the width, utilise the pace to effect. And you would expect Celtic to come through it fairly comfortably. They have the players to do so. They have the resources that blow Raith Rovers out of the water. But as you say, you can't take it for granted. And I think it's really a question of attitude and approach and how you start the game. I think there has to be a very serious approach to the game, a professional approach to the game. And to be fair, you've not seen anything really about this Celtic team over the last few seasons that would lead you to believe that they wouldn't. I think they'll take it as professionally as any other encounter that they play.
Okay, I'll put you on the spot. I'll ask you for a prediction.
I'll go with 3-0. I think it'll be
another 3-0.
Fairly comfortable. I think at the minute what you're seeing from Celtic is a team that are scoring goals. I think they have goals in them. I think it can still be quite important to them to get an early goal. I think when they get that first goal at an early period in the game, they seem to accelerate and go on and truly impose themselves on teams. And I think if they get an early goal again on Sunday, it could be quite a long afternoon for Raith Rovers.
Robbie Patterson agrees with you. He's going for 3-0 Celtic, Alison, but he's no idea who'll score, though. He's sticking to the score prediction alone. I reckon it'll be 3-0 Celtic 2, and I'm going to stick my neck out and say Giakoumakis will get 2 of those goals. There you go. There's a bold prediction. Will Giakoumakis get on the score sheet, Alison? Because I think he's going to play in your team.
I think you have to decide I think it comes down to whether or not he plays, whether or not he starts. I'm not sure what the team will be if he comes in. I think he's keen for a goal. Put it this way: if he starts, I think what you'll see is a player who's fairly eager to add to his talent.
Jason Lee comes in and disagrees and says 3-1. Celtic will concede a set piece goal. Celtic's Achilles heel, Alison, set pieces, and touched upon it. He was disappointed the other night to concede from set pieces, and that's an area that he's talking about in terms of they have to do better and improve on. Did you see it that way as well, that they were poor goals to concede the other night?
I thought they were desperately poor goals to concede, and I think it will be disappointing for them because since the start of the season, you've seen a greater solidity across the Celtic backline. I think they boast the best defensive record in the league, which is quite a turnaround from where it was last season. But what you saw against Aberdeen were old frailties coming to the fore, and I think that will be a source of concern. I think, and I think it comes back to what we discussed at the top end of the programme about Christopher Julian coming back. I do think when he is fit and available and properly match fit, I think he starts.
Well, we'll end on this, Alison. Dermot 40 says, Tony, I was just writing the score and George's Giakoumakis to get 2. He beat me to it. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Celtic 3, Raith Rovers 0, Giakoumakis at the double. We shall reconvene on Monday, Alison, and see how it all goes. In the meantime, again, we've got the onerous task of trying to predict an 11 for the Raith Rovers Cup tie. Thanks for your comments and contributions. Always appreciate it. And thanks, Alison, for your contribution. Always appreciate that too. All right. Have a good weekend, guys, and enjoy the game on Sunday if you're going.